And I was first administrator at Meadowlark Hills in Manhattan. It's a big retirement community there, sponsored by 6 churches. And then I went to Topeka to operate the trade association of all the nonprofit nursing homes in Kansas. And so there are 165 of those. So I worked there for 20 years. And then after that, the last 11 years have just been working in communities, helping organizations very similar to yours. So the people on my team, myself, I have Mark Minjan back, who lives in Great Bend, and Mark is a former hospital executive at the Central Kansas Medical Center, St. Rose Health Center, and he had the job of recruiting physicians to that hospital. Then he was the business strategy, and then he ended up running the health foundation and raising money in Great Bend. My son Ryan is currently an administrator at Santa Marta. It's a Catholic-sponsored nursing home in Olathe, and he's going to be joining the team here shortly. Karen Millsap is an accountant in Great Bend. Linda Farrar is a registered nurse and former administrator. And then Kathleen Holt, who lives in Cimarron, she helps in our communities. We're working in Smith Center. She's helping to raise money. She's a fundraising consultant. These are references if you'd like to check me out. Working at the Masonic Home in Wichita. Janet Jewell's camp is in Cimarron. We worked on a project there for 5 years. And then Sean Sullivan, who used to be the Secretary on Aging. Deborah Zaire at the Leading Age Group, and then Joe and Carol Delatorre. And Carol's maiden name was Buttonoff, and her mother lives at the nursing home. And Carol has 2 sisters. They grew up here. These are past clients. I mentioned the Shepherd Center is a nonprofit in Cimarron, and they replaced their 28-bed nursing home with a new 28-bed facility, and we got rural development funding on that. Working in Spearville, which is right east of Dodge City, and if you recall the Feist phone book, Mr. Feist left $20 million to the town of Spearville, and he wants them to do something good with the money, so they're looking at building a greenhouse. And then in Phillipsburg, worked with that community, Christy Cook, and they built a 10-unit assisted living. In Plainville, we built a 12-unit assisted living. And then in Pretty Prairie, which is south of Hutchinson, built a 12-unit assisted living. Our current clients working in St. Francis, and that is a Good Samaritan nursing home. We're building a 10-unit assisted living that will be on the ground. In Smith County, the hospital up there is building a new replacement critical care hospital, and we're going to build 4 new greenhouses right south of the hospital. And then I have a client in Belton, Missouri, which is a suburb of Kansas City. It's a 126-bed skilled facility and has 55 assisted living apartments. Masonic Home, working with them. And then in Junction City, been working there for about 8 years. It's a community group, nonprofit, and the Good Samaritan Nursing Home closed about 8 years ago, and we're building a new campus. We finally have a piece of land. We have 50 acres of land that we're going to be building there. So my proposal would be that Kansas Senior Living would build a new campus. And the campus would consist of at least 4 greenhouses. And these are 6,300 square feet, and they have 10 bedrooms in each one. And then we would build some assisted living and some senior housing apartments. And those apartments would be 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. The sizes would be around 800 square feet, 800 square feet for the 1 bedroom, and then around 1,000 square feet for the 2 bedrooms. The proposal would then, the county would be freed from the ongoing cost and maintenance of the nursing home and assisted living, and a new complex would be built. So the county would make a one-time grant to the nonprofit to help offset the capital cost. The county would then donate the existing nursing home and assisted living building to Kansas Senior Living. We would renovate the west hall of the existing nursing home, which we figured was around 5,000 or 6,000 square feet. And we would renovate that hall to be new assisted living apartments. And then we would tear down the rest of the building. And we would keep the existing assisted living. So you'd end up with, I think you have 9, is that right? 9 assisted living now in your newest section. And you would have then roughly 8 to 10 new assisted living apartments in the west hall. And we would renovate that hall significantly. We would make an annual payment in lieu of taxation. Now what this is, as a nonprofit nursing home, we're not required to make any property tax payment. You pay none right now. Your building doesn't pay any property tax. But as being a good neighbor in the community and our commitment to the county and to its citizens, we would make a payment in lieu of taxation, and that would be negotiated with the county. And then since Kansas Senior Living is a not-for-profit organization, we have to file an annual tax return, and those are available to the public, and it lists all of the incomes, the expenses. It would list any salary of anyone who makes over $50,000 a year. And it has all of that laid out in that tax document. The economic impact on the county would be significant with a new project. There's a software program called M-Plan that is used by businesses and economic development agencies to estimate the economic impact of anything in a county. And so this software was run specifically for your county, and it indicates that there would be direct effect of the construction jobs of about 196 construction jobs on this campus I described. And then you would have a total effect, and that is indirect jobs that would be developed as a part of the construction. These are jobs of industries or retail businesses that would be serving the construction workers, of another 16. So you have a total impact of about 229 jobs during the construction period, which I estimate to be 12 to 15 months. In terms of total economic impact, my project, I'm estimating, would be $10 to $12 million when it's all said and done. And that dollars, all the payroll dollars, are used then to purchase meals in the community, some lodging, purchase gasoline, all those kinds of things. So in this estimate of this economic model, it shows that there would be a $19 million total impact on the county. And then on an annual basis, when this campus is staffed fully and it's occupied at 90% occupancy, we estimate there would be 60 full-time jobs that would be associated with the campus. Our payroll would be nearly $2 million a year. And of that payroll, you have listed there in detail some of the taxes that come out, personal income taxes. Then you have other taxes that are estimated, such as motor vehicle licenses, property taxes that these employees would be paying who live here, and they even break it down into fishing and hunting license after that. So pretty detailed software. But anyway, a total annual economic impact just from the payroll and the property taxes of $450,000 a year. And then here's a breakout a little bit more on some of the specific taxes. The county would be collecting the motor vehicle sales tax. Sales tax is would be on like the food that the nursing home purchases, the residents who live there, their continued involvement in the community, purchasing power of them. So a total economic impact there is $763,000 on an annual basis. And we've gone over this, I think. So the county would be freed up from the ongoing cost and the maintenance of the nursing home and assisted living. We would build a new complex. And the advantages of this approach, in our view, are, number one, the elderly are continued to be served in the county. The residents would have to move only one time. There would be no disruption in their day-to-day life. The county would keep jobs, and in fact, we'd increase jobs with the construction and then the expansion with independent living apartments and assisted living. And I firmly believe that we could attract people from outside of Lincoln, Kansas, because you would be the newest facility in this whole region of the state. It has a strong, taxes are generated for the county. We have a strong economic impact on the city and county, and the county would have no fiscal responsibility for this project after that one-time grant. So there would be no tax increases associated with this. So our suggestion is that we work with Christian and her team to take over the lease. We keep all the employees in the current wage scale with a transition to a new campus. The county would make their commitment to us. We would hire Campbell and Johnson as the architects, and then the county could end their contract with them. We would put on 2 board members from this area to our board. We would make a payment in lieu of taxation on an annual basis. And we would build the new greenhouses along with the remodeling of the west wing. I'm glad to answer any questions anyone might have.
How much will the grant be? How much would you like the grant to be?
You're a reporter, aren't you? That'll be negotiated with the county. So. Obviously, of concern would be, as a nonprofit, any excess income that a nonprofit generates goes back into the organization. Okay, there are no stockholders, there are no investors in a nonprofit. So all of the revenues that we generate are designed to offset the costs and to be able to put a little away for the rainy day and for replacement of equipment. So our goal is not to return money to the stockholders because we have no stockholders. Our goal is to provide good care, be fiscally responsible, which means that we need to have a bottom line on our operation. Just like what I've heard a long time ago, no margin, no mission. So we've got to have a bottom line, which means that we have to generate enough revenue to pay our salaries for employees, our food bill, our utility bill, all of those things. And so I'm just going to stop there.
Are you planning on building the new greenhouses on site?
Well, that's negotiable too. I work with the community. There are other pieces of land, I think, available. So I think there are pros and cons to doing it on-site or doing it off-site. What you have right now is a very tight piece of land. There's not a lot of room there. so, I guess my preference would be to find a nice piece of land where we could build the greenhouses and then build some independent living apartments. And then, you know, keep what we have there, just because I just don't see enough room there to do everything we need to do.
So, if we went with this proposal, the current residents won't be displaced.
That's right, yeah. And there would be no disruption in their day-to-day life. It would, yeah. Yeah.
When would you know about KSL's approval for financing?
Well, that's kind of a lengthy process, actually. Rural development, if I go that route, it's going to take me 90 days to get a, what I would call a yellow light, which says that everything looks good. And if they have to go to the national office, that takes another 60 days. But I would say within 90 days, we would have a yellow light. And that would say whether this is going to be approved or not. The things that they're going to look for is they really like to see local participation. So if they see the county is willing to make a grant, that's going to help the application a lot. If they, otherwise, then I have to go out and raise money, and that'll take a long time. So if they see some equity participation on the part of the county, they're going to be more favorable about funding.
Do you have any experience with a county treating this type of grant situation?
No, I don't, yeah. I haven't run across a situation. Now, in St. Francis, you know, what they did there, they did pass the 6 mil levy, but the county is going to end up owning the buildings, and they'll lease the buildings out. So.
But you do have familiarity with the a fundraising process.
Yeah.
And have you done that in all of those other facilities? Was there a private fundraising effort made?
Yes. In Cimarron, we raised about $2 million. In Pretty Prairie, we raised about $1 million. And then in Smith Center, we're just starting the campaign.
And what does that look like? I mean, bake sales? Bingo?
No, yeah. You're
Tax
right.
credits?
That's the hard way. In Smith Center, we're going for the tax credit, and that'll be about $200,000 right there. But there's some foundations up there. We're going to go make the approach there. The hospital raised about $1 million up there. So our goal is $1 million. We'll probably approach, we're going to approach the Hanson Foundation. And there's another foundation up there called the Schrader Foundation. And so we're going to approach them. But we're going to go around to each community in the county and make our presentation so everybody knows. And I would do the same thing here. I would go around to each village and talk about the program and what we're trying to do. Some of you have not seen the greenhouse. I urge you to go to the website. It's just called thegreenhouseproject.org. Go there to that website and you can see what we're talking about here with this greenhouse idea. It's what I call it is the anti-nursing home, because it's just exactly opposite of everything you think about now of a nursing home. Just exactly opposite.
When you were talking about Smith Center, how many beds are there? Are you looking at, or greenhouses are you looking at?
In Smith Center, the hospital there, it's a critical access hospital, it has 27 beds. And because of the Medicare regulations, they're penalized to have those beds. So they're going to drop those beds when they build a new hospital. So we're going to build 4 greenhouses. So our plan is to move 20 people immediately into our greenhouses and then fill up the other 2 with 20 people.
So I just was trying to get a sense of, if you were trying to raise $1 million at Smith Center,
Yeah,
and you had so many beds at Smith Center, what Lincoln, if you were talking about 50 beds in Lincoln, what dollars you might be looking at to raise at Lincoln?
I think $1 million is another good figure, very easily. The greenhouses themselves, they run about $1.5 million each. And so you're $6 million right there. And then you got infrastructure, your assisted living, you know, the remodeling here, that could be a pretty good chunk. So, you know, it doesn't take long to get up to 10 to 12 million.
As you go up with that, if you started out 7 million, now you're 10 to 12. As you go up with the dollars, are you going to want the county to put more money into it?
I'm going to negotiate with the county and see what we can come up with to make this thing work. Because the way that I get money for this operation are resident rates, and that's private pay, Medicaid, and Medicare. I have no control over Medicaid and Medicare. So it's all a function of having enough equity in the project to make it cash flow, but also to pay the employees and pay the bills. So the more equity I have, the more I can control my private pay rates and keep them at a reasonable level.
How much money do you have in the game?
How much money
How
do
much
I
money
have?
do you personally have in the game?
It's a not-for-profit, so,
There's money got to come from someplace.
yeah.
Been around money, it's got to come from someplace.
Well, my money in the game is all the time I've been spending right here, coming out at no charge and visiting with people and doing that, so,
I have a question.
Yeah.
If the building, the current building was donated to KSL,
Yeah.
can KSL use that as an asset?
yes, we can, yeah, for what it's worth, you know. But how do I get paid? I get paid I have a contract with the nonprofit to do all of the planning and oversight of the project until it's built, and then I manage the project. So I get a development fee for all that process, and then a management fee ongoing. So those are all normal fees of you know, any kind of organization. And those are all reported in that tax form on an annual basis.
So would the pilot payment be, the pilot agreement, would that be established as a guaranteed payment? You know, whatever the figure is that you negotiate with the county, would that be?
I probably would do it as as a kind of a range, depending upon my operation. I'd do it as a range, a low to a high. And I would guarantee that. I'd put that in my contract.
Is that a new, do you do a pilot? Do you have
Pilots-
pilot agreements with other?
Pilots are done primarily when you're talking about independent living apartments, but they're usually not done on a nursing home. Because a nursing home, honestly, you're pretty much breaking even on the nursing home. It takes so much to keep a nursing home going. So I would look at, you know, primarily looking at my assisted living and my independent living type units, and be able to, and oftentimes it's for the city police, fire protection, so that might run, you know, 50% of the normal property tax. That's just an example.
I have questions to ask till the cows come home, so if you guys are okay with that.
Keep on the roll, Don. Maybe you can answer some of ours.
Well, I said that and I lost track of what I was thinking about.
Getting old, John.
I got a question, in terms of the pilot payment, so how long of an agreement is that? I mean, I know if you do the USDA loan, you're talking about a 30 to 35 year type of thing, but how long of an agreement would you have with the county?
You know, permanent. Could be a permanent, long-term agreement, as long as we operate the place.
And would you have the option, or how would it work in terms of Kansas Senior Living 20 years from now decides, you know what, Lincoln isn't working for us anymore, it's, you know, it's not cash flowing, we want out, they
Yeah.
sell the property, and then what happens to those agreements, or?
Well, we can talk about that, you know, that's a scenario, and I'm not sure what you would do in a situation like that, you know. You've got a nonprofit entity, you've got county government, so, but,
Would there be, I mean, obviously, we're doing this for the purpose of nursing homes,
yeah,
taking care of our elderly. If we get to a scenario where it ceases to become a nursing home,
mhm.
does the county could the county have a first right of refusal for buying it back, or could there be a deal, it automatically reverts back? You know, if this
I
is
think-
no longer a nursing home, it automatically.
Right,
becomes-
right, and I think we could do something that, at least for a period of years, that way you felt like you've made your commitment, John, you know, like you might do that for 10 years or something. But yeah, we can talk about that language, I just don't know specifically how you would lay it out. Because I don't know that the county would want to be back into the nursing home business, but I see what you're saying,
Well, I think, I mean, just kind of from the conversations I've heard with,
yeah,
you know, what happens in the future, it's really hard to know what happens next year, let alone 10, 20, 30 years from now. But the whole idea that right now we do have a certain amount of control over the situation and our own destiny and what happens, and I think that's a great thing
Yeah.
to a certain degree, that we have the ability to be in control
right.
if and when the time comes.
We could talk about that.
So, back to the grant scenario, and I realize we're trying to nail down a number, and it's really hard to do that right now,
Yeah.
but let's say that the money comes from the web fund. I assume that is where people might be envisioning it come from. So, potentially, if all of your needs are covered by the web fund, and there wouldn't be any private fundraising done on top of that, or is that always something that you would?
I'm gonna join the two, yeah, I'm gonna set up, definitely a fundraising program, but, because most, not-for-profit facilities in Kansas, all across the nation, they have a charitable, giving program. Because, a not-for-profit, to keep your tax status, if someone runs out of money, you cannot discharge them. Okay? So if we were to admit someone into our assisted living and they run out of money, we, under federal law, we cannot discharge them. So we have to make a commitment that, you know, we're gonna care for people long-term. So we would devote our resources to, you know, setting up funds like that to help to cover the costs when someone runs out of money, to buy new equipment, to whatever we can do to improve the program. You know, people every day leave their estate to pay state. Sometimes they make a mistake and leave it to pay you. Excuse me. No, and it's often in retirement homes too. A family feels like, wow, you really took good care of my mother. I really appreciate it. Here's $10,000 to buy some new equipment for the employees or for the residents. So it's a good deal. Yeah.
So we're in a situation where the governor just vetoed Medicaid expansion,
Yeah.
and they fell three short vote in the House this morning to override that veto. Does that temper your enthusiasm for a project like this, considering that we continue to struggle to get Medicaid expanded in our state?
That program was mostly helping hospitals, so it really didn't have a direct impact on nursing homes.
I believe the bill reinstating the 4% is separate from
Yeah, that's right.
the
Yeah,
bill reinstating.
yeah,
the 4%
that's another bill there. But
on other projects, so how do you suggest that, a community this size can get behind something like that, or to, envision it properly?
Right. Well, I think some presentations like this to the community, and then preparing some handout materials, and then it's always good to have a small group of people who are really passionate about this, who could be available to meet, every 2-3 weeks to just, help guide the project. I could see that happening. Those are some ways.
How do you feel about this, especially one owner, but then an employee?
Well, as far as transitioning to a different operation, I think that the resources that John brings to the table are they're impressive. He has had exposure to so many different opportunities and resources that I have not. You can look at me as a stepping stone of improvement in care. And now we're at the next level, and I think the county really needs to look at, hey, what else can we get? We've got the quality care piece under control. Now, where can we go? And I certainly think that it's really up to the county commission as to where they want to move forward. But certainly, I think it's important that somebody who can take on the wants and needs that have been expressed by the community in regards to they want a not-for-profit in here, then go get a not-for-profit in here. I have enjoyed every piece of being here, but that doesn't mean that there isn't other opportunities in Lincoln County, and I'm all for you guys looking into potential opportunities that might exist, like John Gray did.
Okay, I would like to see a comparison between this plan and the 1 million plan it was, so that we can compare them
Probably
side by
a 2.5
side.
maybe.
2.5, whatever the figure was, so that we can compare. Everything has advantages and disadvantages, so I think we need to do a comparison before we get too enthused about anything. We might be able to borrow a little here and a little there, and, it's worth exploring.
I think the main difference that we're looking at though is
I
the
understand the
county
main
ownership.
difference. I understand the main difference, but I'm just saying that that's not the only viable option. So let's look at what the other option is and compare them together and see which we like best. I mean, we can't just look at one plan and make a decision in a vacuum. We need to look at both plans and compare them.
I think that there's gonna be a certain amount of looking at both ideas.
Well, can we
I
see
know a lot
this?
of people don't understand the situation that Kristen's been under the last 2 years with this Medicaid application deal. If any of you people out here are making 15% profit in your business, I'd like to see the business plan. Because if she's not getting paid for 15% of her residents, they're gonna profit, and more probably. I don't know how it is in the nursing home business, but I spent a lot of years in the construction business, and it was cost plus 10%. That was your profit, 10%. So, unless they get that straightened up, Kristen's in a position where she can't go forward without losing money. She can't survive on the conditions that she's under right now. I know everybody thinks she's getting rich in there, but I'm telling you, there's no way she could make more than a 10% profit and 15% of her business she's not getting paid for.
So with that, what you just said, how is there justification in the $2.5 million in the building as it stands?
Well, it's with the hope that eventually they'll get the damn thing straightened out, but I'm not too confident.
With what you just said, how's this guy explain the maintenance?
Yeah,
I would say,
the same scenario with the state. The
There's-
state doesn't
there's
pay
money.
her, the state's not
he's
gonna
got
pay
it figured
you.
out.
Again, there's only so many resources that I have as an operator, and there are things that I am not educated on, which is Medicaid monies, and there are ways to, for instance, increase Medicaid rates. Our current Medicaid rate is $163.27 per day. Right down the road, there's a Corporate America facility in Wilson, and their rate is $187 a day. And I can't imagine that the acuity level of those residents is much different. They just have Corporate America to be able to know the game and how to play it. And I used to know how to play it, but about 4 years ago, some things changed, or it was when the drug categories changed, and I kind of lost track of how the game is played. This is the type of resource that John can bring to the table that I don't have access to, though. And that's part of the puzzle, one piece of the puzzle.
And I think it's no secret, I think, when you have a facility like John Grace is talking about building, the private pay rate is gonna go up. I assume.
Any organization I work with, I recommend they look at their rates every year. And the average rate increase, I would say, in nursing homes around Kansas on an annual basis is 3 to 4%. And so we would be no different. We have no backup, so we're gonna look at our costs every year, and, employees have to have a raise once in a while. So what are you gonna do? I mean, you've gotta address that. So, that's just the realistic aspects. Nobody likes to see our utility bill goes up, but it does. So,
I think Kelly's comment about what happens if you're no longer in business, and you said maybe 10-year agreement, I think there ought to be an agreement that the home, if it's built, goes automatically back to the county. Because you're making as you call it, a donation or a grant or whatever it is to this facility. I say that all comes back to the county. Because just like Terry says, speakers, they might have between here and Washington, and everything could be screwed up 2 years from now.
yeah.
Well, there's no guarantee that someone in charge might not pass away or something like that. I mean, you always have those risks. I think what it goes back to is what Kristen was saying, to focus on the patient-centered care. If we're going to put in this money from the county, be it the old building or new project, what are you getting more out of as far as what the ultimate goal is?
Okay, and so why can't we see a presentation on the alternate plans just like we saw on this one, so that we can compare them?
That is what they did at the public meeting.
No, there was not that kind of information, that detailed information. This will happen, and this will happen, and this is a safeguard, and this is
Talking
not.
about economic impacts and stuff, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. And,
The economic impacts won't be anything in comparison in a remodel to a new construction. There just won't be. You're not talking
I
about, you're
realize
talking about
that.
bringing in a handful of workers at a time over a 1.5 year period of time. And a lot of those very possibly are gonna be local already. So,
but what keeps us coming back here in 5 years, because Medicaid hasn't paid the new people, just like they aren't paying Christine,
it's his problem now, not ours, for one thing.
Well, ultimately it would become ours.
Well,
I mean, even though he owns it, we're still in the business of saying we want to provide for our senior citizens. That we want to have a facility for our family that's local. Because that's important to everybody when you talk to them. They don't want to have to take their mother and drive 60 miles.
there could be an agreement in there, a right of refusal or whatever you wanna call it. None of us are gonna be here in 10 years.
Yeah.
And the next group of commissioners may not give a damn about the place.
But
Quite
the
frankly.
people do. The people do.
Yeah,
Of course,
but that
the people
doesn't really
could
matter.
change. The people could change too. But we have to deal with what we know. We can't deal with what we don't know.
There's the county in position, he's talking about possibility of a $10 million expenditure. Could I see a Lincoln County Commission buying back a $10 million facility?
No.
If you quit, you buy it back cheap.
Yeah.
Bankruptcy deals, you buy it back pennies on the dollar, people. My God, that's the way it's always worked.
One of the,
I don't know if the right of refusal is gonna work in a bankruptcy though.
there's a lot of communities like yours that, you go back when you built that in the sixties, a lot of communities did that. And now, over time, the regulations and the legal issues and all of the requirements on a small independent facility are overwhelming.
It's the same in the banking industry, look what's happened there.
Yeah.
There are no more
So-
hometown banks anymore.
With my company, what we're trying to do is get a group now, which we're doing. We'll have Smith Center. If we had this one, now we have two. You can do better with 2 or 3 than you can with one. And so like one will probably get in trouble, but you have the other 2 or 3 then that are doing okay. That's the advantage of having kind of a group going. And that's what I'm trying to do in these other areas, is get these small places that have been running on their own. They've been doing pretty good, but looking to the future, they don't have any money, their building's worn out, the board of directors is worn out. It's just a big challenge. And they're not up to it. I mean, you just cannot make it happen.
Will this be a separate not-for-profit than the other facility, or will they be the same not-for-profit?
Well, we may have a separate for legal purposes, but then it'll be under an umbrella where they're all under that.
I realize there's probably a lot more details to look at, but, is there a scenario where the county gives you the facility, you renovate the existing facility and you only build one greenhouse, maybe you don't need, because you said 4?
Yeah.
Is that the only, you only envision that because of the economy of scale, whatever it may be that.
What I like to do is I do a market study, and I have an independent firm that does that. And what they do is they look at the demographics of your market, the number of elderly in the future. And so what the mix may change, John, but overall, it's going to be very similar. So I might have, maybe a few more assisted living and less skilled, or maybe more skilled and less assisted living, but it's all going to be campus of some type. Because the campus is the best approach. You're diversified and you offer services for different levels of need.
I had one question come to me about this setup, about the campus. Is there a general gathering area of some sort
Yeah.
that's included?
What you have your greenhouses, and those are like your house, but your assisted living and your independent living would have some common spaces, so you could have some community events there. But in some places, I'm also looking at doing a child care room to serve families that have child care needs. Doesn't have to be a big room, so I would even look at that here if there's a need in the community. Yeah, I think it's a neat intergenerational aspect of, kids coming in and participating, so.
So what sort of a timeline are we talking about? I guess what sort of a timeline would you like?
Well, I've been talking with Christian and her husband about Solis and the county commissioners, so we're trying to move as quickly as we can to make sure that the commissioners have all the information they need. So we've been meeting every week, so I anticipate we'll continue that.
So if they said in 2 weeks, everybody was on board with you, you'd be ready to go.
Yeah. We can start pulling the trigger, getting all the documents in place.
I've exhausted my questions.
Well, if you're wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning for the next couple of weeks, and you have a question, give me a call, because I'm probably gonna be up, so.
Does this take care of all that fine? I mean, will it all disappear for damn sure?
It's gone.
It's gone, I mean, this will make damn sure that it's gone.
The only question remaining would be the agreement to remodel the facility. I'm not sure where that would go to. By, what I mean by that is the paperwork that we submitted to the state to show them that we were getting ready to do something to keep them from coming back in and fining us for the floors not being replaced already. They seem to be happy with the paperwork, that they see that we are planning on doing something, and they realize it takes time to accomplish that, so.
Okay, does anyone have anything else for John Grace? I would announce that we will, the agreement that we have with Kristen Robinson that is due on, expires on, okay. I will move that, the 7th, I will move that it be extended for 30 days.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded to extend the lease with Kristen as is for 30 more days. Do I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Does anyone else have anything come before this commission before we adjourn for the day? Or for the week, I guess. If not,
Has any progress been made on the EMS situation?
what progress are you looking for?
The backside issue.
Were the applications filled in? Isn't that what he said to do? Yeah, that's what he said. He said they needed to have application, come in, pick out an application, fill it out, and he'd look at it. For the EMS. EMS. He said, to get on the roster, he wanted an application filled out.
Right, I was just talking about the backup issue.
Well, I don't think the Good Ferry dropped 10 more EMTs into Lincoln County, so.
I'm just asking,
I mean, I don't know how you think was gonna get solved in a week's time, Casey.
No, I know, I was asking if Brett's gonna approach about the class,
There was some
or...
follow-up conversation on classes and some of that, and I had a few people approach me from the fire department and say that when they were getting their recertifications, they were having regular meetings and doing that, like, overlapping, so maybe that's something that we need to look at, reinstating that, so that they can keep up their credentials without having to designate separate time. If they go back to having regular meetings, and they can have an instructor give them their time.
They still have to do the thing online, it's outside the state.
Right, but I'm saying as far as accumulating hours, that was a concern.
If not, this commission stands adjourned until Monday at 10 o'clock.
Still-